Good morning. I'd like to thank SteelOrbis for inviting me to this fruitful meeting. Such a successful meeting, and the contributors to this meeting have done a very good job, and I extend my deepest regards. First, Veysel kicked the ball, and then Başak passed the ball to somewhere else, and then Mehmet sent it or cleared the ball up front, let's say. So I'm trying to pull the numbers down a bit, so it's not going to be an appealing presentation like the previous ones. As Veysel made this presentation, I remembered a little joke. As was mentioned, Albert Einstein was working as a professor in Oxford University once and conducted an exam. And after the exam, his resident came and asked him, "Didn't you ask the same questions you asked last year?" He said, "Yes, I have." And the resident asked, "Why?" He said, "The questions are the same, but the answers have changed." Hence the dynamic structure of our business. I'd like to mention you the brief, or give you a brief evaluation of the automotive industry. So what's happening in the automotive industry? The production is growing. And in 2005, there was a 1%, 15, there was a 1% increase. And we expect it to be 2% in 2016. Looking at the first 6-month results worldwide, we see that a 2% increase is going on in terms of motor vehicle production. And looking at our numbers in Turkey, it's 9%. Well, we have to keep going. Very, very nice numbers there. Looking at the global scale, well, we're actually an industry that exports 76% of its production. So that's why I'd like to give you figures about regions, local zones, and then global market. In Asia, Pacific, and Middle East, the numbers are not bad. Japan is not doing very well recently. The South Korean market is also on the decline a little bit, but India, China help this location grow. The good news from Western Europe comes from Western Europe. And you see the production numbers there. In North America, it's also increasing, but in Japan, South America, and Eastern Europe, the production figures are on the decline. Looking at the increment of the market, we expect a 3% increase. And here, as you see, there's a slight increase in the car and the commercial vehicles. There's a slight increase. In Turkey, there's a serious recession in terms of commercial vehicles, as opposed to what's happening in the rest of the world. So, looking at the Western European market here, it is, compared to last year, there's a 9.6% increase, and this is a location where most of our experts go, so it's very important for us. And what about the situation in Turkey then? Now, looking at the automotive industry and the production rates in Turkey, we see that our capacity will increase, or will go over 1.4 million. And compared to last year, we have a serious increase. And this shows us that in terms of percentages, our market share in global production was about 1.6%. And in the past, the highest number we achieved was 1.61. We are slightly below that figure, but we're also doing not very bad, I have to say. And looking at the automotive industry, I'd like to prepare the basis before giving the expectations. Looking at the Turkish automotive industry, in the last few years, with the conversion that it has gone through, our automotive industry has become one so that it could design a device from scratch in terms of engines, for example, and any kind of design is possible to do in terms of the transfer organs. Now, we can say that we could start doing a car on paper, and then we could produce the car at the end. That's the engineering ability that we have. Why do I say that? Because to do this, we need the support of people who are in this room, which I'm going to talk about later. As you know, there's an R&D center approach going on in Turkey, and our Minister of Finance gave us a number, and 78 of these R&D centers are based in the automotive sector out of 276. So we have about 2,800 R&D personnel working, and about, in total, when we look at the numbers, it goes up to almost 4,000. So looking at the automotive industry in terms of employment and in terms of innovation, the Turkish automotive industry is like a pioneering industry. Something else that supports this is that looking at the total R&D cost of OECD countries, expenditure of OECD countries, we see that in automotive industry there are pioneering countries like Germany and Japan. They are spending a lot of money for R&D, and there are other countries who try to fit themselves into the market, such as Czech Republic, Romania and Turkey. They're spending some serious money on R&D. Looking at our export markets, we're really trying all our best, and the numbers here are actually covering a period of 9 months from January to September 2016. So you can see our figures. You see that the 80% of our export go to European Union and EFTA countries. So if European Union actually, if we and European Union have a problem, then it's going to cost us a lot. So at the end of October, 905,000 cars have been exported in this year. So I'm not going into the market details a lot, but I would like to say that last year it was our best year in our history. We produced more than 1,358,000 cars, and we exported almost 75% of that, almost a million. So what will happen in 2016 and 17? In 2016, the production expectation is going over 1,450,000 cars to be produced, and the export estimates is about 1,100,000, and hopefully we're going to have the best year in our history again. And this slide actually looks at what the automotive industry covers and what expectations we can talk about. And let's look at the expectations here. Now, I'd like to briefly talk about the global trends going on in the world right now. There are different trends, varying trends in various fields and sectors, but these are the ones that actually sums it up quite well. As we know, urbanization and industrialization has increased with developing economies. Sustainable legislation and directorates are now actively ruling our lives. The changing demographics and expectations of the clients and innovations in new technologies, digitalization, and Industry 4.0, we can all count these in. What about the automotive industry then? If we leave the legislation on one hand, we can basically talk about emissions. When we say emissions, practically, we're actually talking about a field where we have to work together very closely with the audience here, which is the tonnage or the weight of the car. Now, in terms of emission, some serious work has been done recently, and the European Union value is around 95 carbon dioxide grams per kilometer. In Turkey it's about 125. So we have actually conducted a research, and the Turkish average value is about 125, very similar to the European Union average. If you look at the top right, it actually shows the spending on the lowering or efforts at lowering carbon dioxide emissions, and shows you the engineering costs, and as you see, it's going up. And if we continue talking about cars here, well, we have to talk about for example, the steel family, and when we look at the lightness numbers of the figures of car production, the decisions made by the industry, governments, and expectations of the client, we know that we have to get the cars lighter. And so here we have to say that this is one of the top items on top of our agenda. And so maybe you could be a bit furious with this, but I obviously didn't conduct this trial, so maybe could be angry at other people. And we look at the steel and its family in a broad sense. Its load in manufacturing vehicles is obviously going to decrease. And when we look at the Einstein joke that I have mentioned a few minutes ago, this could be something that people who actually want that to take place may actually say that, or it may be that further research is needed by the industry to prove or disprove this. I'm not going to give you any names, but we have arranged a conference and between 3rd and 4th of November in Istanbul, we organized an international automotive engineering conference. And getting the cars lighter was the key subject. And there were a lot of participation internationally and locally. And there's lots to do. And this is a joint mutual common ground for us. And industry, an automotive industry, along with the steel industry, should come together to actually work on this, so that sustainable competitiveness should be sustained, and we need to work mutually together. I'll skip one slide. Now, what about getting the cars lighter again? So these are the advantages seen and appreciated by people. Well, this is a very basic 80 to 20 Pareto principle, and if you look at the getting the cars lighter in terms of the Pareto principle, you actually, if you have a 50 kilogram lighter car, it actually gives you a 2% saving on the fuel and 5 gram less carbon dioxide emission. But obviously it puts a strong load and strong burden on the pricing of the vehicles. So this is something that we have to really evaluate and balance. What about expectations and evaluation for 2017? What will happen in Turkey in 2017? To be honest, I'm not really capable to give you a speech on that, because our country has one hell of an agenda. And what do we expect from 2017? I would give you a very brief insight. This is an industry that exports 76% of its production, so we have to look at the global scale. I'll start with the good news. The European Union market will, or we expect that it will proceed as it was in 2016. We are expecting a recession in the British market as a result of Brexit, because the GDP growth will decrease to 1.2% from 2%, which will affect a 9 to 12, which will cause a 9 to 12% of recession in the automotive industry in the UK. And why UK is very important for us? Because looking at the exports of our automotive industry in 2015, the UK was number one with more than 175,000 vehicles. So obviously it will have a strong impact on our exports. Unfortunately, Russia is expected to have a similar progression and as for their markets in 2016. In terms of the automotive industry, the 2017 will be similar to 2016, so that we will have a 1.4 million vehicles. Looking at Africa and Middle East, We know that financial and political constraints there cause a lot of negativity, and we know that it's not going to give us the opportunities that we want. I'd like to talk about the magic crystal ball, and what's two weeks ago I said that in Turkey the market in 2017 will mimic the one in 2016, but in the last 2 weeks things have happened which may actually not prove that. And yesterday the public finances management law has been actually passed by the government, so that the cabinet now has the chance to adjust and play by the numbers, and how it will obviously transpire we're yet to see. Now the part that actually is most your interest, what do we expect in terms of production in 2017? An industry that actually exports 76% of its production. In the left side we're expecting our export performance to increase slightly, about 5%, based on the estimations and planning that have been done as of today. And new projects will kick in at the end of this year, and the projects that kicked in at the end of last year will actually reach its production plateau, and this number can go up to 10%. However, because of Brexit, there could be a loss of volume. We can't actually forecast that, but that is why we have actually written down 5% instead of a double-digit number. Looking at Turkey, 2 weeks ago, we could be talking about an amount of 5% increase or decrease in terms of production. But once everything is settled down, once we see the private consumption tax and what happens with it, we'll then see what really can happen. What about our expectations from your side? Obviously, sustainable competitiveness is key for us, and to keep that going, we actually want to continue conducting business partnerships with you in terms of technology, supply, and trade, so that our competitiveness, domestic and abroad, can continue to be at a certain level. And as Başak mentioned, she mentioned about protective markets. I have to say that this has nothing to do with that, but an example from the automotive industry here, and the 75% of the cars or vehicles sold in Turkey are actually imports. So in such a different condition, when you can actually produce 1.5 million and export 1.1 million, actually these conditions are actually kind of teaching you how to survive in this market. And the steel industry can actually achieve the same status and can carry itself to a very good position. We'll be very glad. Looking at the product portfolio, obviously the automotive industry is hoping for more variety. But these are things that I really don't know very well, and I have to be very careful. Obviously, new products with higher resistance and higher shapeability should be used, and we're expecting your support. And also, this hopefully will give us the upper hand in terms of competing with our competitors abroad. And also, products suitable for new production technologies is an area that we're also waiting for your support. And also, when we look at the product portfolio, obviously quality, competitiveness, and delivery are key elements, and obviously the roll width should go over 1.5, and it's very important for us, as I said. This is my last slide, I think. All orders must be produced for the expected time of delivery, weekly delivery programs, planning the storage, and also having an effective supply system is key for that. And we received some demands in that case so that the delivery can be done on time on a weekly basis. And also order management over the supply system is an expectation that we have. And when we look at there's a high production lot for the metal plates, and they cannot be directly ordered, and we expect a change in that. And I'd like to thank you for listening to me on behalf of the Turkish Automotive Manufacturers Association. Thank you very much. Thank you, Osman. You seem to look for some new investment. You're having some demands from the sector about the flat steel producers especially. It's very difficult to have an estimate in Turkey. Well, our agenda is a fast-moving one. Any questions to Osman?
Erdemir Genel Müdürü Sedat Orhan.
Sedat Orhan, General Manager of Erdemir. We would like to thank you for this insightful presentation. Now, we really care greatly about the automotive sector, automotive industry, because it is the pioneer of our country's industry. And in the export, we know that $7 or $8 million of income is something that it actually provides. So the iron and steel industry has a lot to do to support your industry. Obviously, you're looking for a clean quality of steel, and that's what you expect. And more than that, obviously, the volumes can be on the decline because of the less emissions being targeted. But obviously, we are a group that aims at improving the automotive industry. Even if it's not a very profitable industry for us, it is one industry, it is one sector that actually supports our R&D efforts and improves our quality. So we really greatly care about the industry, automotive industry. And this is an industry that actually creates the factor of quality, the difference. But here, you stated your expectations. On our side, obviously we have to match our expectations. Firstly, the iron and steel sector, automotive sector or industry. When we talk about the numbers, you talk about R&D. You have some serious centers and you have a serious amount of staff. We need to do some mutual R&D work. Maybe by establishing a center of culture of excellence, and we could work together with the automotive industry, and you could work together with the iron and steel industry, so that two sectors work together. Because you state your expectations from our industry, and our industry is going through a lot of challenges, and usually they prefer to go to different industries, different sectors, so that because you actually see that the profit coming from the automotive industry is taken for granted. And every year there's a change, as you said. Okay, but to do that we need a center. And these two industries have to meet somewhere. And that's what I'd like to mention. I think this is very important. Thank you. I'd like to give you a few pieces of information just to keep in mind. Looking at the automotive main industry and supply industry, the rate for export was, the number of export was $21.6 million. This year we're expecting our exports to go over that, to go up to 23, and $16 million of that will be coming from the main line. And looking at the results of the automotive industry in a broad sense, covers for 16.7% of all Turkish exports. Well, our board of directors are actually quite angry with me, but if an industry is catering for almost 17% of a country's export output, we have to be a bit cautious because it's a very high figure. Secondly, when we organized our engineering conference, the Erdemir Group supported us and Mr. Oz joined us, and before the meeting we actually had a brief chat with him, and I said, let me invite you for the Automotive Industry Association. We have an R&D committee, and for the new generation metal sheets you could perhaps tell us what you do. And the cooperation that you have mentioned is something that we have to do ASAP, and Mr. Oz has to visit us and we have to get the ball rolling, and we are very cordial towards this, and hopefully we're going to start a cooperation very soon. Thank you very much.
Ben el kaldırınca Osman Bey çalışmadığı yerden soracağım diye endişelendi ama öncelikle
Thank you for this presentation. As Sedat also mentioned, automotive industry is very important for Erdemir Group, and in Turkey we are the only flat producer, and we also have a mission so that we try to produce steel elements or products that can't be produced through the scrap, and developing this is obviously a part of us. I have a question to ask. You said there'll be a recession after Brexit, and one of the biggest importers of Turkish export is obviously the United Kingdom. So are we talking about vehicles being used in the UK, or are we talking about the billing address being in the UK? Because is it that we're actually selling all our vehicles to the UK, or are we talking about vehicles driven or used in the United States? And secondly, well, we're not actually worried so that the automotive industry should stay in the metal sheet and not go into the aluminum plate. I have another slide, Ali, but I actually couldn't show you that, but it's actually in your hands. The automotive industry likes to work with stakeholders that it actually has been working on for long years, and obviously metal sheet is one of the things that we actually take into that list. And when you're dealing with things that you know, it's easier than new unknown challenges, and we know that production and discipline are very important, and you have a very good opportunity there. No more questions, I expect. Oh, about the Brexit. 90% of that figure goes to the market, because there's a difference in terms of the driving lanes and between Britain and Turkey, but obviously the companies are actually selling and buying. Oh, does all that number go there? Well, we know that some of these figures are directly related to the exports to Cyprus, but okay, thank you very much.
Sunumum, sen de cevaplarınız için.